Austin, very good to see you. Today, we're going to talk through 6 moments to move your money. There are times when moving your money isn't just a good idea, it is necessary. Figuring out when can help you protect your investments, reduce your taxes, and stay aligned with your long term goals. So, first, we have Roth conversions. When does it make sense to move your money from a traditional to a Roth IRA?
Yeah, this may sound a little counterintuitive, right? We're intentionally paying tax here with a Roth conversion, but really there's two main reasons we would want to consider this approach. Number one is, are we in a lower tax bracket, right? Or lower income year? So if we have, perhaps we're phasing into a part-time role at work, or perhaps we took a job cut, or perhaps our spouse got laid off and it's going to be a lower income year. Any of these scenarios should turn on the light bulb in our mind to say, should we consider a Roth conversion? Number two would be, do we expect our future tax bracket in retirement to be higher or lower than it is today, right? So we have to kind of use a little projection and say, what is that answer? What is that likely answer to be? And then kind of make a judgment call on whether we should consider this Roth conversion or not.
Another big milestone for retirement accounts is 59 and a half. What is the significance of that age and what is an in-service distribution?
Yeah, 59 and a half is really the magic number in the retirement planning space. This is when we can roll over, right, those 401ks to an IRA, which is known as a in-service distribution, right? Kind of tax and penalty free there if we're still at our employer. So what that simply means is, if we have a current active 401k, right, where we are still employed, we take that current balance and can roll it out to an IRA at 59 and a half and still contribute with new money into the current 401k. But essentially that balance is now in an IRA where we have perhaps more management techniques and funds available to us, and not just simply the 401k investment options.
Okay, so now let's talk about changing jobs. What should people do with their old 401ks when they get a new job?
Yeah. Number one, first and foremost, is really work to understand your new 401k, right? Because before we decide what to do with the old one, we have to understand, what potentially am I moving it to? So all of these kind of details will be in what is known as a plan summary document, or sometimes known as a plan summary description. They are the same document. It will simply just tell you all about your 401k and all the provisions that are in there. So once we have a good understanding of what that new plan offers, if we like and have the same flexibility, right, that we have in our old plan, we should move that old 401k to the new plan, because it is much simpler to manage. Right now we have all of the assets in one place. We don't have 2, 3, 4, 5 different accounts, right, banking out there that really are not working together, and frankly, a lot more for you to manage.
Another sign it might be time to make a move: high fees. How can someone figure out if they are paying too much?
Yeah, I think this is really a two-pronged issue here. Number one is, truly, do you understand the fees, right? There's a lot of different fees that can be buried in some of these investment solutions, whether it's expense ratios, advisory fees, technology fees, transaction fees, right? Whatever the case is, we have to understand, what exactly am I paying, right? So get a good handle on that first. And two, I would argue there really is no problem with the pure level of any fee. What we see as a major problem and major consideration that all investors need to be aware of is, what is the value that you are getting for the fee, right? If you are getting enough value, then you have no problem paying the fee. But I think far too often we ask ourselves, as investors, what am I actually paying for? We can't answer that question, right? We don't understand what value we are getting. So that's really the number one call to action, is understand the fees. And number two, what am I paying for exactly?
Yeah, good point. Of course, performance matters too. At what point should someone consider moving their money if their investments are underperforming?
Yeah, performance is certainly important, right? We know over the long haul, we all want our money to grow. That's why we're investing it, right? And performance is a big part of that. I would say, really, we need to take a long enough time horizon, right, to accurately judge performance. That's kind of step number one. And step number two would be, identify an appropriate benchmark, right? For instance, if you have an S&P 500 Vanguard ETF, right, and that is your sole investment, well, comparing that portfolio to a US bond is not a comparable benchmark, right? You are not comparing apples to apples. So you have to understand, what is my appropriate benchmark that I should be gauging my performance against? And two, has it been a sufficient enough time period? And I would argue that's somewhere in the vicinity of a couple of years, right? Judging a portfolio over 3 months is not enough time. And certainly you don't want to wait a decade, right, to potentially make a change when you really should have made it several years before.
Yeah. So, what if someone's time horizon changes? Maybe they're retiring sooner than expected. How should their investment approach shift?
Yeah, this can shift in a multitude of ways. And I think first and foremost is be sure that you're communicating, right, these timeline changes to your trusted financial planner,
Yeah.
because that only works, right? This relationship works if it's both ways that communication goes. But number one, we can simply, right, reduce our stock exposure or equity exposure. Perhaps we even want to reduce sector exposure, right? We all know some sectors are more volatile than others. It could be something like also increasing cash on hand, depending on the interest rate environment, right? In today's interest rate environment, we know we can get CDs or money market funds that pay right around 4%, albeit that can fluctuate up and down, of course. But right now, it is a pretty favorable interest rate environment, right, to have perhaps a little bit more cash on hand.
Hmm.
In 2020, that was not the case, right? We had a very, very low interest rate environment. So then we make or may suggest different changes to the portfolio.
Yeah. It's nice to talk this through because I feel like a lot of us here, the common advice is always just buy and hold, leave it alone. But it's great to talk through when we should consider moving our money. So, Austin, if somebody is coming up on any of these moments, what's the best way to reach you so that they can talk through and make sure they're doing everything right?
Yeah, you can give us a call at 919-322-4113, or shoot us a quick email at info@patriotwealthnc.com.
All right, Austin, thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.